Little video camera I thought I'd use to make sure we get all this on tape.
Wow.
So it's better than going around with a phone like this the whole time. So.
You know, I watched a scary movie this weekend called The Circle.
I did too.
Did you really?
I watched it too last
Did
weekend.
Did that kind of freak you out a little bit?
Not really. I mean, they went to the extreme. So it was basically supposed to be a Facebook melded with a Google.
Apple and Google.
And Apple and Google, and they made it one company. And I loved at the end when she goes, and here we're going to have you guys wear cameras and go live. Remember, he goes, we're so fucked.
It was a little bit scary.
It was, yeah, but I don't think it, I mean, that's a good movie to have as reference, because that's the kind of thing you go, I don't think.
Doug Kennard, how you doing?
Boy, you didn't even get a chance to take the cement off your glasses. I believe you.
All right.
10 feet up on a bobcat bucket shovel.
Oh, man. Good. So we've been walking around. He's been giving me some technical stuff, but I said hold off on most of it till you get here.
Okay.
I'm videotaping it just so that if we say, wait, what did he say again on that? We can play it back. And we've picked out the colors we want. So are you ready?
Jump. No, don't jump.
Don't jump.
Don't tempt him, he might go under.
So we'll go around front where the plans are or whatever you want to do.
So, do you know anything about Nichiha?
No. Okay. First time I heard about it was when we showed you the condition.
Okay. Probably haven't sold a ton of it up here. So, I know the Meeks have sold a couple jobs over the years.
If they don't know the
But, yeah, they don't know. Which is, I get it. They probably didn't even, probably wasn't even the same filter.
Yeah, probably not.
Who's one of the gals? Is there a gal who's working?
Sarah.
Sarah's people turn,
Oh, okay. Maybe that's who I dealt with.
She was
pretty good. The one that we used to do. Okay.
So Eric, we decided to not do the stonework as pictured. Here, I'll get you up to speed what we talked about, and then we can talk about the details. Could you hand me that 2x4 there, Pitty? Thank you. So we're not going to do these. We're just going to run the siding all the way down. We are going to take the shake that's going to be up in here and put it on the front here. And of course that wraps all the way around those pillars, right? So that's kind of it on the, I forget what the back looks like. That's the point. Okay, so that's the front. Okay, so yeah, no, that's the side. Yeah, so that's the side here. Yeah.
Of board.
Right, and then on the back, where's the back? Oh, that's the back of the house. No, we don't. There. Here we do, which is on the garage and on the office, but not on the actual house. I don't know why he did it that way. Well, you're right. It drops below the windows. Yeah. That's why. Yeah. So there it makes sense because you're right above the window. Above the window, you're right. So, yeah. So the shake on the sides. The shake.
And shake here, right? Instead of stone.
Right. Right. Yeah. So then on the side. This is the bedroom side with the tub area there, bathroom there. And then on that side, nothing because it's just the roof line. So, and what do we want to do here on the fireplace?
I don't know.
Any suggestions?
You could use the same product on there.
I think it'd look nicer there because it's either, I mean, I don't want to have stucco. Stucco would look stupid. And unless you put just that framing up there. I think
You could either
maybe,
put the shake, or you could put the espresso.
Well, that's
up there.
true. The difference is the shake is fireproof here in this case. But that would look weird to have shake on the chimney, wouldn't it?
I've
Never
seen
seen
it, but what I just had a crazy thought. I was thinking about just taking the roughs on and just do it vertical instead of horizontal.
this is Edgar, by the way. He's
Hey
joining the
Edgar, how you
meeting.
doing? Nice to meet you. I don't know. I just because
Yeah.
there's no reason why you can. I do see a lot of horizontal, and then for whatever reason they want to change it up on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'd almost like, well, of course, we don't have any of the stonework outside, so then it's just sticking out there too. So
Okay.
we'll get back with you on that.
You'll figure
Yeah.
that out.
All right. So that's pretty much it, the decisions we made. And then also in the fireplace area, we decided to go with their product kind of around all the way up to the ceiling on that. So, and then before I forget, the foundation's crumbling over there. You see it? So I don't know if you want to take a look at that. I'll see how bad it is. So anyway, we want to get in the technicals again now with everybody's here, and
So let's
I think you should be talking to Edgar too, because he's going to actually be doing the install, and I think so he's the one we were talking about layout and all that, and you've done the hardy board, right? Okay, so the difference between this and hardy board is hardy board are just planks. These are actual, was it 4x8 sheets?
No. They're a little bit different. They're 18 inches in height, and they're 10 feet long.
Okay.
18 inch, 10 feet.
Shake and it's gonna get she's
Alright, so you have this one upside down. So roughly between this exposure and this exposure, it's 18 inches. It's actually 17 is going in. So it's good to realize when you lay out, it's not true 18. Just so you can kind of visualize it in your head, it's 18 inch, 10 foot long. We're going to install this. They want it installed horizontally, which you can go either way. So this is what we call the starter track. This is what we're going to put up first. This is what's very critical. It has to be laser
Switch
level.
sides.
It has to be put on straight. If you're off on this, get up to the top, things don't line up. So this is what we call our starter track. So the starter track is 10 foot long. It's actually going to do this right here. So we're going to mount this on the wall like this. And all we're going to do is we're going to put a fastener into this right here. All right. So the top part of this, all right, there's a clip, which I didn't actually have a clip, but it's 26 inches. You bear with me a second. You see that clip right there? It's 26 inches. What it does, it actually will seat onto this part right here. So you're actually going to screw the clip, not the panel. So we're trying to minimize how many face fasteners we put into this. So basically it's just a, put it in here, you take this 26-inch clip, it's going to take 4 of them per 10-foot panel, and it's going to go and basically over the studs. That's where you want to put the fastener. It's going to take a screw, it's got to go through the shear, 1 inch into the stud. Okay? Next panel is going to overlap it, so you're not going to see it. So it's what we call a closed range screen system. You notice how this right here, it has a gasket. So we're not waterproofing when an 18-inch panel. We're only going to waterproof when it meets up together. So in other words, we're going to take this, same ring. So in these longer runs, we're going to talk a little bit about layout in a minute. So how do we detail around doors and windows? Have you got the windows yet?
They're showing up probably in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Okay. So we're going to take this panel, and this is a full run right here. We're going to start wherever we start. We're going to start at the bottom. You're going to work from our left to our right. So what we're going to do is stack these 10-foot panels on top of each other. First course, second course, they have to stack on top of each other. We're not going to stagger them. So that what that means is between the next panel, if it's that long run over there, we're going to have these vertical lines. So they're going to use what we call H mold between them.
So all the panels are going to meet the edge are going to run from the very bottom all the
That's
way
correct.
to the top.
Yep.
Yep.
In other words, you know how hard you stagger the boards? You got a 12 foot, next one's 6 foot, whatever it is. It's not the way it works with this. So it's going to be critical in the layout of where you strategically put those things. In other words, if it's 34 foot and you run 3 10-foot panels and then you run a 4 foot at the end, maybe it looks good that way. I don't always necessarily say it has to be symmetrical. It has to look good. Might be where the windows are, because you might be able to do that line, but it's very critical to have that line, because you're going to have basically about a 3/8 inch, well, with the molding it's a little bit less than that. The H mold's going to take care of that, because we're trying to minimize waterproofing between panel and panel, which the only way to do that would be caulking. So in this case, we're going to use H mold.
In lieu of caulking, right?
In lieu of caulking.
Yeah.
And we're going to use J mold instead of doing it around the sides and the bottom of the windows. We're going to use the J mold. So we're trying to minimize all of the caulking. Now the way the detail.
Could I interrupt this?
Yes.
So we're going horizontal on that, so that's going to look like this then, right?
No. This is actually, we're not actually using this.
Okay.
This is where we're going to caulk it.
Okay.
We are going to use this in an inside corner. That's why I do have.
Oh,
it available.
okay. Okay.
But just for that's basically how that's going to look around the windows.
Okay.
But
This will be a darker color, right?
It'll be a darker color
Okay.
to match one of the overtone colors of
Okay.
rough side.
Good.
Same thing with the H mold. So what I want to show you is what the H mold looked like.
And the reason, Doug, is because the caulking and the extreme temperatures.
Well, when you caulk something, that's maintenance. So I don't know what the failure rate is of caulk up here. Do you know what it is? 3 to 5 years, 7 years. I don't know what that is. But if you don't have to caulk, then you minimize having to come back and have somebody come back and recaulk it every.
Plus,
7
if you
years.
had caulking in there, you'd have to try to match the color, right?
Right, that's not a big deal.
Okay.
Because OSI Quad makes a lot of colors.
Oh, okay.
That's not a big deal. So that's the H mold, if that makes sense. Okay.
So that'd be a window over here. Like the window would be going this way from this.
Well, this is actually that is actually
Or an end piece.
that is this right here.
Uh-huh.
So a window would actually butt into this.
That's what I'm saying. So the window would start here and go over here.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Right.
So the detail is even around wherever you have an opening, you'll have to have that J mold. The tops, though, you cannot use the J mold because that's going to trap water. So you have to use the standard Z flash, and that's something we don't provide because every window is different, every opening is different. So you'll have to have. Do you guys use a brake metal guy out here?
Yeah.
So he's going to have to make all of your Z flash. You're probably going to want that to match in dark brown somewhere close to what you're using with all the other stuff.
Okay.
So the other question I have is actually to get off is outside corners. We have two, and I'm going to have to. I apologize for not actually having one. So we have a corner key, and we have an open corner. So the open corner, if you looked at it head on, it's going to look like this. However, if you look directly on it, you're only going to see that one little edge, which is the same dimension as that. The corner key is basically, it's just a, when you look at it, it's just molding that's like that. It just goes away. So in my mind, I mean, this is just me. I think corner key might look the best. Yeah. If you're going with a really modern, I'd say go with the open corner. That would be, that's the ticket.
But on ours, you think corner key's better? Okay. Well,
Because you're not
corner
really
key.
trying to go as much for the modern look.
No, no, no.
We're not going for the modern look here.
No.
So we want to just wrap around this
Yes.
corner as clean. We want it to go away.
So there's
Right.
no trim.
No. You can see how the corner key is right here. So the panels actually slip into it. These are made especially for our system because it's going to sit off about 1 inch because of that clip. Everything that keeps it off the wall, that
That's
thickness.
part of your system.
That's part of our system. So this is how thick, this is the airspace between the panel and the weather resistant barrier, which is right over the shear. So it's that thick. So this is actually going to work with our system. So it's all flush.
Now, when we measure for all the window openings and everything and go, okay, now we need quarter keys here, we're going to be measuring all the vertical surfaces where a door or a window is going to be. That'll be corner key. And then,
Well, no, well actually, with an outside corner,
okay,
now, I don't know how this is going to, that's a question that, is this going to be how is this going to, with the garage, how is this going to detail out?
good point, I don't know. Did we? Yeah, so but before we put up any siding, how's it gonna, yeah. I don't know.
So, I mean, again, is this going to be maybe like a metal flashing that's all the way around this thing?
Normally we would do a piece of trim similar to that fascia there.
Yeah.
Thinner.
Right.
All right, okay.
So, yeah, going to have to be some thought into that. Some people will use the outside corners right here,
Okay,
but it's too small to cut our product for this little thing right here.
okay.
Yeah, you got all that? Yeah.
Right, right.
Jam piece.
So is that something you want to think about?
Well, it's actually more on you guys,
Okay,
how you want to detail that out. Who's to say that you didn't do what you were talking about? Run the board all the way out here, run it, and run the J-mold right to there. Run it out a little bit, and then have the J-mold. Just run the J-mold. Like so.
Can't hear.
oh, there you go, yeah, okay. Yeah, that looks good, that's fine. That'd work.
Those are the things that you guys are going to have to.
Okay, so if we go that way, then we'll use, this is the J-mold, right?
J-mold, right.
So then on these doors, we'd say, okay, now we need X amount of feet on J-mold,
Yeah.
and use this also for windows, right?
Yep.
So all the windows and doors are going to be J-mold. Then when we say, all right, that's how many linear feet we need of that stuff. Then when we get to the edges of the building, then we say, okay, now we just measure all the edges of the building. What about the inside corners? What do you put there?
Corner is actually, that's probably going to be your only sealant joint.
Okay.
So let's just walk over there. Basically, it's going to be like this. You're not going to see that, all right? That's going to probably do that.
Okay. And then do we need to caulk that at that point?
You're going to cock behind there.
Okay, so on the inside corners we caulk.
So
Okay.
inside corners, we always say it's whatever's the least amount of noticeable. In other words, we want this panel going into here, probably, as opposed to that one there. In my mind. So it's all about, you can't do it wrong, but it's all about aesthetics, what looks the best. So when I ask you for an inside corner, I need the lineal footage of inside corner. When we have J-mold, it's going to be the side heads of windows and the bottom of the windows, but it'll also be the side heads of these garages, if that's the way you choose to detail that out.
And then on the horizontal surfaces, that's when we get our brake guy that would say, okay,
Brake
then
guy's gonna
we just
have-
tell him on all those horizontals everywhere, right? Garage door, windows, everything. Okay.
So that's going to be a conversation that he has to probably come out and measure, and then try to match everything as close as possible.
Is that determined by how far out the window sticks out?
Because basically the flashing is going to go underneath our product. So our product's going to go on top of that flashing. So that flashing has to be done prior to installation. So he'll be a key component. But it's going to be all in the top heads of the windows. So the sides, J-mold, bottom J-mold. You can't use the J-mold at the top because water can get trapped in there. So that's why you can't use it. Some people like to do it because they think it's clean. It's not the way it should be done. Okay. So outside corners, I'm going to ask you on this. What I do is I'll send you a project information form. This form is going to ask you how much lineal footage of outside corner. So wherever you're going to use that outside corner, I need that lineal footage. They're 10-foot sticks, 50 come in a tube, however many tubes it takes. And then I'm going to ask you, we already know pretty much it's going to be more of a custom color or a matching color as opposed to clear animals because they're patterned. Okay. So, did we want to talk about layouts a little bit?
Yeah, we do. One thing I think you were stressing, you're nailing into the support system, not into the product itself. And
That's what I mentioned. It has to go wherever the stud is. So on this 10-foot panel, there's going to be 4 26-inch clips. So they strategically have to be placed so a stud is probably at least 2 stubs per clip.
now the main difference between this and hardy board, besides the dimensions, are the fact that it's a painted product. So if you make a dent in hardy board, it's a who cares, they're going to just paint it up anyway. Here, you've got a painted product and you can see how it's 2 different colors in there. Going to be hard to touch that up. So we need to really minimize any slipped hammers. Obviously, you're not going to do that, but I'm just, you're not, that's true. That's a snap in and then put it on and then hammer that
Keep in
in.
mind everything's a corrosion resistant. So what does that mean here? Does that mean stainless? I don't know. That's something we're going to have to research here. Because stainless is maybe on the coast, and is it at 5,000 feet? I don't know.
Well, otherwise, it's just
I mean, it can't be a drywall screw. It has to be a non-corrosive. But what I'm saying, it could be maybe a coated screw. There's a lot of good stuff out there, but that's.
what do you normally use here?
But you'll have in my mind,
Pardon?
What do we use?
What kind of screws do you normally use in siding?
We don't use.
they use.
They use nails. Okay. Yeah.
So it has to be non-corrosive,
Okay.
whatever that is. So that's pretty much, this product, it has to stack. So we're going to use the H mold. So those lines have to be strategically placed. And the way these panels are, you have these step downs. So it's going to be, so I think there's going to have to be some thought about, is it going to step down with it or is it going to be all straight across? According to the plans, it actually step. So that might be some thought there. Because if you're going into concrete, how does it lay flush up against that shear, or is that?
There's the wood right there.
Yeah.
It lines up.
Does it work that way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But the question is do you want to do that? You know, I mean, if you have to, the only problem, I don't know if you can, you know, you may have to fur these out and put tap cons.
Going to break when it.
Yeah, but you don't really want to do that. You want to minimize that.
Well, actually, on this one.
Well, how much are we backfilling to here? Yeah, I was going to say
that's the other thing.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But I think you have to establish what is the baseline. And if this is the baseline right here, you might have to work, this is the starter track here, and work down.
Got it. Yeah.
You might have to cut it down on the bottom.
So basically, that would be up here then, right?
Yeah, your starter
You'd start
track-
here. You put that up here.
Right.
Then this would be the cut piece down here.
Right.
Right.
You have to take in consideration when it goes around and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And this is not the same as. So you have some. The good thing is with this one though, it's going to be easier to line it up if you do have to cut different sections.
Okay.
But that's the challenge with this right here because it's not all the same.
Right.
But you have to establish the baseline. So everything above here, you know, and obviously this is going to be too. You're not going to be able to use the starter track, so you're going to have to rip the bottom off. Anytime you have a cut edge, you're going to have to seal the edge. You have to seal every edge.
What do you seal the edge with?
So we always say primer, but primer actually doesn't work that well. We found that 100% acrylic latex paint will work better. So you go down and have them match that color. Every time he's making a cut, he's daubing that edge the same color.
So we'll have to cut at least an hour before we install, right?
No, I mean,
no.
you
What
can-
I mean is, if he cuts that, now you got that, you paint it on. You want to let it dry a few minutes.
Yeah, but it dries quick.
Okay.
You're just going to daub this edge. You don't want to try to put anything here.
No, because then
But
it
on
looks
this,
bad.
if you do, say, it works out to where, you know, you got this spot right here, maybe it, and it's got to work out too. So there's got to be some thought about how it lays out. But this cut edge has to be sealed.
But when they're all full panels, they're already sealed on the edges.
Correct.
It's only when you cut it.
Correct.
Okay. Either top or side,
Correct.
or bottom and side. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. What were you?
I felt like I got two answers here, so I'm going to ask the question again.
Okay.
If I cut this off,
Right.
did you say I cannot sit it on a starter track? Or did I
Yeah, you
misunderstand?
won't be able to use the starter track. If you cut this bottom edge, you can't use the starter because it has to sit into the shell.
Oh, because
We
of the
have to do
groove.
face down?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the first time you asked the question, you said that, yeah, you can just put it in the starter track.
I'm sorry.
And
No, so if we're using, if this is the baseline, we're gonna have a starter track here. And we have to cut this panel in half, or maybe down wherever. We're gonna use that green shim. We're gonna put the green shim because that's gonna fur it out. And then we're gonna have to put a fastener down along this bottom. So, that leads to another question. How do you do that? That's where the kind of craftsman guy has to make sure it's done good. Pre-drill it, countersink it, and it might require a color-coded fastener.
Now,
As long as it's clinical, meaning that it looks good, usually that looks really good, because the alternative would be to actually countersink it and putty it, but you can't match it. So that looks like crap. So if you do the hole where it's mechanically looks good, now is there going to be decking and all that stuff right in here too?
not on this.
no. So if they finish with it being here, and then they're basically now doing that last piece down here,
Right.
which requires a lot more work now because you got to countersink and all that. Can they go, if they got a flow going and they're going, let's just keep all these lines perfectly, can they come back later and hang that last piece?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that may make more sense to go, okay, here's our baseline, we're going up from there, right?
And then come back.
And then
Yes.
come back later
Yeah.
and with more time, and maybe even I can help and go, now we got to take a little more time and do the countersink holes and screw it in, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have to do, those are little details I have to do all the time. So I take my time and I drill it where it's not going to bust all the fiber cement up, and I have a nice clean hole. Then I might have to take the touch up because it's kind of there's no finish on it. So So I'm dabbing a little bit of paint on that little edge and putting a nice fastener.
Right.
And like I say, those little details, that might be something that right up your alley.
Right.
But as long as they're clinical,
Yeah.
they look
Yeah.
good. But if you go back and try to put some caulking or sealant in there matching, you can see it. It looks.
Yeah, I just wouldn't
crap.
want to waste his time and his crew's time,
Right.
you know, going da-da-da-da, and then all of a sudden having to change course and do this. You know, if they can just get the gross part done, then later on with his help, I can
Well,
say,
we'll-
now
we'll
let's go ahead and do that last
we'll take the
last
sample, We'll
piece.
show you how that actually does. 'Cause that's,
Okay.
that's a good point.
Okay.
Anything that's basically, when you get small pieces, it's tough. So if that's the case, if you have anything recessed, that's where metal flashing or something like that would. Or like we talked about on the garage.
Yeah, that probably just gets some colored
And then like I
flashing
say,
on
if you
there.
have to run a little bit wide, that's fine. Just use the J mold.
So how does it work with the ball jam? This door?
So is that is it going to be like brick mold?
Normally the jam would come directly from your door jam from here, then the trim would come and partially cover it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would partially cover it, you know, to there.
Does it have molding already on the door frame or not?
No.
So do we gotta get fancy again?
Yeah. Because in a normal application, if you use siding, you know, you would use brick mold or something like that. And brick mold would already be attached to the door, and it would butt into it. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with that either.
So a lot of it's that fit and finish look that you want.
Yeah.
I was so used to seeing trim on all the corners and around all the doors and windows. So now we're going to do a flashing detail or a J mold or a brick mold. So we got
But that would only apply to the door, not the windows, right?
right.
Okay.
Just the doors.
Just the doors. And that would include like that door, any exterior. Okay, got it.
This will be a little bit different, but because you got a jam that you're just hiding the jam. Whereas this one, it's the jam from the door.
Yeah.
It's partially exposed right here.
Right. So in my mind, that might require something else different right there, and then butt into that. Okay. This one steps down also. It's all about layout. It could be that this actually works out with the starters down here. Yeah. So once you get the gist of how the starter works and how the clips work, everything else makes sense. So it's not that difficult, but everything has to be seated properly. So when you get that clip, you're gonna have to tap down on that, make sure it's all flush, all level. And when you're going, like say, on a 10-foot run, that's when we're gonna use the H-point. And the outside corners, just where it wraps around the corner. But that's something you can ultimately make that decision, because it sounds like I need to get some more samples of the corners.
Okay.
Top of wall termination.
So we're going to do the termination the same way. We're going to cut that edge, use that green shim, and well, actually we have two ways of doing it. We actually have a finish clip. So what that means is you have to take a biscuit cutter, cut that little slit in here. It's a low profile clip. So basically the clip just sticks out about, I don't know, 3/16 above this. You put it in the screw right into there because it actually seats into that slit. That's one option. Or the other option would be drill it, countersink it, put a nice face fastener in it. So if you had like, some people will use some type of flashing up there too, like coping. But because you're dying into something, you know, maybe it looks better to do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Want to keep walking around? See if
Sure.
see if anything else kind of pops up. So we actually, when it comes to that stuff, yeah, just a good quality blade. I don't think there's anything necessarily made for fiber cement. When it comes to those hole saw, jigsaw stuff.
What do you usually use on the hardy board?
For a saw, there's a blade that's got like 4 teeth.
Yeah, I mean, is it carbide tipped or something? And
Usually you don't use one per job on those things. They don't last real long.
what about the countersinking? Can you use the drill countersink combo that you drill it in and countersink at the same time? Okay. Okay.
Those are the things that at the end you look and go, that looks great, or it's like they really screwed that up. Those little things there make.
I forgot this already. I forgot. This detail right here. We've got plywood showing, for OSB showing here. Do you have one of those fasteners to deal with that?
Probably the brake guy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, unless you wanted to use a J mold and cut the J mold, you could use the J mold right there.
Wrap around and cover it and even go over it.
Yeah. So you might end up using more J mold because of that. Yeah. You could certainly do that.
What would be the recommended overage you'd recommend when we were measuring the linear feet on this stuff? 10% or something? Or
Square footage.
okay, okay.
When you're doing the takeoff, we're going to ask you what the total takeoff is.
Oh, I'm sorry, not on this product, on the like the J molds and things like that.
Linear footage.
Yeah, I know, but how much overage would you recommend so we don't run short? I mean,
On outside corners, usually, they come in tubes of 50. So, if you need 25, you're going to get 50.
okay.
So
Yeah.
you're always going to round up anyway. Usually, the only way that people are off on hardware is if something popped up that wasn't on the original quote.
Okay.
Same
But
corners.
but when we do that list, then you'll check it and go, hey, you
Yeah,
forgot,
if you need 400, and a lot of guys will round up. If it's 9, they'll go 10. So I need got 4 corners. That's 40 feet.
do you buy back?
No.
Okay.
No, because there's no way that we can get it in the same shape that we should.
Okay.
Plus it comes from a warehouse in Seattle.
Okay.
So I would say, as far as square footage, though, I try to do between 10 and 15%.
Okay.
So to me, it's really how everything flows. When you have all these step downs, this is gonna go. Well, that's your
decking coming out on this one.
And that's another thing too. Any kind of ledger boards have to be put on before you put the siding on. 'Cause you don't want to try to put it over the siding.
Right. Yeah, for your bit.
Yeah.
Side up, maybe some flashing coming behind it.
Yep.
Here, ledger board.
Yep. And you'll have to treat that like you would a penetration. So, which means that is this the only?
That's the only outside panel.
That's the only. That's it.
Yeah. Well, we got another one way down there, and then we have an inside.
That's it.
Yeah, that's 400 amps right there.
But I mean, there's no other penetrations per se.
Well, there'll be those bits coming out.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, no. As
that's
far as
good.
big, that's it.
that's great.
Yeah, that's it.
That's good. They should like that.
Well, that and the gas, but yeah, that's the only big
So in
one.
my mind, something like this probably needs to be framed out. And then if it's too far out, you might have to step it down a little bit, and then use the J mold into that.
Okay, I was wondering if the
Z-flash
J-mold
over
was
that.
big enough with this to work.
Oh, in other words, yeah, you could do that because it's going to stick out.
Right.
It's going to stick out that. But yeah, as long as you can get these open with that, you might have to keep them all. You might have to step it down, or I'm not sure what that is, but
How often do those green shims go on? Are they on every piece?
No,
Or is
only
it
where
just
you
where you get to a
only
weak
where you
spot?
terminate.
Okay.
So if you need them on the bottom because you can't put wherever you can't put a fastener, wherever you can't put the starter.
Because
That's
the
where the-
starter track then holds it.
Right.
But so you don't want to go slamming against the wall and
Right.
break the piece because there's nothing behind it.
Right. Plus, it keeps it all in the same plane. Otherwise, it'd be tipped because that shim is about 3/8 of an inch.
Now this will be a slider. There's no special treatment on this. Treat it like a window.
You're probably gonna. Is it decking over here too?
Decking's over here, right at that bottom of
Well,
that.
that's good. That's a whole nother.
right.
That's a whole nother detail because you're gonna have to detail the. But you would actually treat our panel, and you'd have to Z-flash. In other words, if we're gonna end like right here, shim behind it, Z-flash over it.
So we need a brake metal guy to
Yep.
have this up.
And some of this stuff you won't know until you, it's like, whoops, you know. So the more that you can figure out prior, but your brake guy is going to be critical.
So what's the standoff then with
The overall standoff, it's a little bit more than an inch.
okay.
So, in fact, I'll give you that the J mold. That J mold will give you those dimensions,
Okay.
so you'll have it for the brake guy.
Here's an example of the door jam that I was looking at. Is how do we do that?
Is that the door that's actually going to be used?
In this case, yes.
Okay. So I mean, yeah, I think there has to be some type of trim that covers this, and then we butt into that with the J mold. Because you'd have to do that with any other kind of siding anyway. You'd have to.
Right.
Odds are it comes about halfway over this, but.
Right.
So we haven't really talked about the shake either yet. Is there any other questions about this? And these are going to pop up as you go, and I get that. We have a technical guy, plus you can call me. But we also have the Sierra Premium Shake. It's 1/2 inch thick. So typically, you're used to Hardy, right?
Yeah.
So this board is 9 inches in height, 9'4" long, but it has keyways. Keyways, by definition, is the spacing between shingle to shingle. So those have to be staggered. That product is put up kind of a hybrid method. The board ends have to be screwed. In the field, you can nail them, but they have to nail to a stud. The screws do not have to go over a stud because we're requiring you to be 1 inch down, 1 inch over. Well, that's 2 inches. Stud's only 1.5 inches. So as long as you use the screw, if you have a butt joint right here, you use the screw on the outside, on the board ends, but you have to do that. Now, if you wanted to go screw the whole thing, be a little bit more labor, a little bit more fasteners, it's not going to ever come off the wall. That is what we call a premium. A lot of guys are used to Hardy, you just boom, 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 boom. The problem is with that is you end up with an irregular nail pattern. You see it all the time. Starts out at 1 inch. By the time it gets over here, it's 1/2 inch. Well, anytime that you deviate from that, you have more likely that wind can take that off the wall later, or it breaks or cracks. So it's important to keep the fasteners all in the same 1 inch down. But it's a hybrid. So when board to board go together, the detail is they actually have moderate contact, which means they touch each other, and then you have to use joint flashing behind it. Do you do that with Hardy?
Some places, yeah. Like
See, right now it's required.
up there.
It's required.
Yeah.
It's required even with Hardy right now to use joint flashing behind it.
Yeah.
So that could be coil stock. That could be. Some people use felt, but I don't know what the longevity is in the long run. I don't know if UV, how it handles.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, we did a house in Turkey. It was a lap siding, Hardy. Every joint, the one's flashing on the back, caulking here, caulking here.
You don't want to caulk this stuff at all. Now, if it were me, because I know this 5,000 feet, you get snow, you got a lot of expansion and contraction. Don't gamp it. This stuff does not grow. It will shrink. It'll shrink the distance of the keyway. So aesthetically, it's okay because you can't notice it because it's the same width. If you have the joint flashing there, that protects from the water going behind the board. So it's critical to have the boards touching. Because in some guys, they'll think, oh, I got to leave 16 penny nail gap between it because it's going to grow. It's not going to grow. So it has to have moderate contact.
We get 105 plus up here sometimes, and that's still not a problem, huh?
No, it's not the problem. The problem is the temperature swing.
Right.
And what I don't like about the nails is there's a chance that they pop loose because of the expansion and contraction. Whereas if you use the screw has more pull-out strength. It's going to take a lot more to pull that off the wall than a nail. So that's something that you might have to look at. But we call that a premium install. Whereas the hybrid would be nail here at the joint, or excuse me, screw at the joint, nail in the field. You can gun nail that in the field. Butt joint, screw. The good news about that is you don't have to land over a stud here. Because you can't toenail it. People were trying to toenail it before and that just doesn't work. You ever see Hardy when it kind of pops up right here?
Yeah.
That's because it didn't get into the stud. And it might not show up for 2 or 3 years. I've seen them where they're 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I've seen them sometimes 6 months. But if you put the screw in it, per our instructions, you're not going to have that issue. So joint flash, and then on the windows, we don't have any windows, do we, up top? They're just gables.
What are we doing on that? It's,
Oh, in relation to that shake?
Yeah, the shake. There's
Look
no.
at the pictures.
See, it's
I'd
the
have to
shake
look
is
at that.
actually half an inch thick,
Yeah.
so it's a lot thicker. The good news is you can use like an impact, and it goes right through that stuff.
so we're going to use screws on the
You don't
premium
have
then.
to- You don't have to pre-drill.
Oh, okay.
You will not have to pre-drill with.
On the shake.
Yep, they go right through. So I think there's a transition board between the shake and the product. So when that happens, again, you're going to have, I don't know, whatever that is, 2x4, whatever that transition between this panel and the shake, you have to Z-flash over that trim, and technically you have to do it over our product too. It's actually almost like a double Z-flash. If you did it per...
Over the siding, put the belly band on, more flashing, and then the shake.
Yeah, because this pretty much dies. So you have to Z-flash over this. So you're going to have to rip this edge off, put that 2x4. But technically you'd have to Z-flash underneath and put the 2x4 on top of the transition. That's the way the plans show.
As long as we're thinking about it, what about soffit covers then? Is that something we'll just measure that out, then you can give us a separate line item on that?
We actually don't have soffit available out here.
Oh, you don't?
No, because it's actually 5/16 thick or 1/4 inch. So you could use Hardy or Allura, either one of those.
Okay. Or just leave it open like that, or, yeah.
I don't know, how's that perform up here, open?
Oh, it's fine. It's more an aesthetic
Static
you
thing?
want to
Yeah.
look at.
And my brother has it on his open, and that's a 20-year-old house, and he's just now starting to get a little peeling on the paint and a little bit of damage on the wood itself. But that's probably just because he hasn't painted in 20 years, so,
It's not bad.
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that look. That to me is kind of the classic California look. If you go into the southeast, everything has fascia soffit.
So
Okay.
if we get a painter, because we were talking about, we're going to save on painting because we don't paint the outside now.
Correct.
We're just going to paint the inside. But up there, we still need to have the painter, right? He's going to have to paint
Yeah,
all
you
that.
gotta paint the fascia.
Yeah. So that's the only quote that I'd need from the painters Give me a quote on that. Okay.
What about the brake metal guy? What if he made a brake metal instead of having a big transition piece? Make the transition the brake metal.
Oh.
Z-flash over, and then have it come. Have the shadow, but make sure it's a shadow line between the two products. What about that? Does that make sense?
No.
In other words,
I didn't
the way,
get it.
okay, the plans show like a, I'm going to use the word belly band,
Okay.
but it's a belly band that goes from there all the way right there.
Right, and that
So it's
defines the
the two
areas.
products.
Yeah.
So in this case, what if you had brake metal that actually Z-flashes over?
Oh, so it looks like
panel.
it's hanging over it then.
Yeah, it's going to be flush. It'll be the same
okay.
detail around the doors
Okay.
and windows,
Okay.
but you're going to leave about maybe a half-inch gap between the shake and the panels. That way you're going to develop a shadow line, so you know there's separation, but you're not having to do it by having something that's bigger. Just throwing it out there.
Save step.
Save a step.
Depends on what you want to look at.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I think
an option.
technically you'd have to double flash. You'd have to flash over our panel, and then you have to flash. But if it's a Z flash, that might be something that you get the brake guy to make something, make a little mock-up. But leave you a room for shadow line.
So basically, it'd step in and then continue on down again.
Basically, what you're trying to do is if you look at it from the side view, the shingle comes down about a 4 or 5 degree, whatever that is. Have a starter kick-out board on the bottom. All right, and then underneath of that, though, you'd have Z flashing, and it would actually Z over the top.
So how big would that be? Just
You'd
whatever.
you'd have a separation between the shake and the panel.
Separated
probably-
by the Z flash.
Separate
So you'd
by-
have to make sure the Z flash has color on it. That's,
Right,
Yeah,
you'd have
okay.
to have color, be the
Okay.
same as the doors and windows.
Got it.
But you wouldn't stack and put the shake right on top of the Z flash. You have to leave a gap.
No.
And then, whoa!
Ooh. Nobody got hurt that I can see, unless there's another guy in
No
the pit
blood, no
down
foul.
there.
That's what I told my kids. I don't see any blood, no foul. But so that would be aesthetically, you're looking good because you still want to develop the shadow line, the separation.
Yeah.
You're going to get the separation in the Z flash, but also that step between where it actually you're going to have at least a half an
Does
inch.
that sound good to you? Is that a cheaper, better, or the same?
You're eliminating 2 steps. One, a secondary Z flashing, and the step of.
So it'd actually be cheaper and faster to do it
Yeah.
that way.
So you just they flash it once.
Don't use belly band, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just siding,
Uh-huh.
Z flashing.
Shake, yeah. I'm all for that if we can match up, the colors with the brake guy. You have a good brake guy then, or?
Yeah, ABC sheet metal, and then a friend of my former employee actually runs the sheet metal. Sparks.
Okay. Should we get a quote from them, or what? Do you want to call them on that then? Okay, great, thanks.
And I think aesthetically it makes sense because you'd have to do at least, I don't know, that band would be at least what, 7 inch thick. Plus you'd have to, I don't know. Anyway, that's about detail.
Right.
So anytime, like on these gables where you have to cut the shape, where you have to cut it, seal those edges, so you know. So you're probably gonna, in my mind, it's gonna be open. You're probably gonna have to put some